who's the founder and CEO of a company called Blackbeard, which finds executive talent and cybersecurity talent and the companies that need them and makes those connections. She's also the only person I know who's ever been written up for excessive hugging.
Totally true story.
But she's going to be talking today about careers in cybersecurity and how to retain talent as well. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, so if anyone wants to hear about the hug gate, as it came to be known later, I am happy to tell you that story. Poor Ethan knows the story in detail. But I'm glad to see everyone here, and it's really fun to see some good, familiar faces. And if anyone's wondering, I brought my own entourage today. My two daughters, Sarah and Zella. Woo-hoo! The coolest people on the planet, in my opinion. Very humble opinion. So I am Dominique Clark. I own Blackbeard Consulting. Let's see, new pointer. So hang on one second. Is anyone good at the, wait, I need it to like move the stuff. Hang on. It worked 2 seconds ago. Manual. Okay. So I actually have been in recruiting for 25 years, which seems obscene because obviously I started when I was 4, right? I've been doing this for a long time. I got started in finance, and when the economy fell apart in about 2008, 2009, I know where I was sitting when the announcement that Lehman Brothers died. It killed my entire business I'd been building for 13 years. And I was lucky enough to find this incredible job working with Jason and Tom Anderson, and now Zach leads the group with Idaho National Laboratory building a cybersecurity team. Well, I got to tell you, I had never touched cyber. I know recruiting inside and out. I had never touched cyber. It was the craziest, scariest, most difficult to learn subject I had ever encountered, and frankly, the most fun. So Huggate came and went, and I decided that it was maybe better for me to start something on my own. At that point, I had figured out how to bring clearable hackers to Idaho. And I had this in my mind that I could maybe rule the world if I could figure out that kind of hot mess. So I started out with Blackbeard in 2011. We now support organizations from Fortune 10 to very small consulting firms. Across the country, we do some international work, but truly our home is the US, and that's where we do the bulk of our work. A lot of people don't understand what executive recruiters do. And there's a lot of ideas out there. I think a lot of folks assume that we're kind of that person trying to sell you something you don't really need and make this crazy. That's really not what I do. There are some of those out there. Beware. Buyer beware. You'll get what you pay for. And as a candidate, it is important to understand that a recruiter is not working for you. The recruiter is working for the company that hired them. So for instance, a company will call and say, hey, I need you to go find a security analyst for me. Or we had a really cool, crazy one where we needed to find someone who had a specialty in hacking cargo ships. They are very difficult to fill positions. No one calls us in because it's easy, and they pay us handsomely to find that person, which is why we have that term, headhunter. It's not the nicest term, but it is the term. It's really finding that needle in the haystack. And cybersecurity is a very difficult group. It is, y'all like to hide. You value your privacy. You only talk to a few people, and you won't talk to me unless I've already talked to someone else you know, right? Much less you're overwhelmed. I think a lot of candidates get into a position where they've heard from so many recruiters, many of them from overseas, that don't understand the industry, and you don't have a lot of time on your hands. If you're in security, you're working hard. It can be very frustrating, right? I actually have cheaters because I can talk a blue streak and I'd rather be relevant than random. So pardon me. I want to actually get a good idea of who we have in this room so I know kind of how to position the information. How many people here just love their jobs? Oh, yes, that's awesome. How many people hate what they're doing now and can't wait to make a move? We need to talk. How many people did not raise their hand because their boss is in the room and I just made it awkward? Right? Nobody raises their hand. They're like, that happens more often than you think, right? How many people are new to the industry? Just getting started. Okay, good. So as you're just getting started, there's going to be some really good information in here for you. But this is not just something to do as your early career. This information, I encourage you to take throughout your career. You're not just going to look for one job. You are not just going to be charting your career once. It's a constant evolution. So please be mindful of all of these pieces as you walk through your careers. Before we get too far into some of the metrics that we're going to talk about, I want to be clear. Mark Twain says this best. I use this all the time. There are lies, damn lies, and statistics. We're going to look at a lot of stats as we run through this. We're using 3 different groups, ISACA, Career Builder, and CyberSeek, to pull numbers in. Watch the trends. The trends will be obvious, but you need to also look at those numbers and use them with a grain of salt. Just be careful as we go through, and you'll see why in just a couple minutes. So this is an ISACA slide. And ISACA does a great job every year of pulling information together about what this cybersecurity talent gap looks like. So essentially what we're working with is an enormous number of jobs and not enough people. 2019, they chose to gear this information towards what this really looks and feels like in an enterprise or in a consulting firm. And what we're seeing is a few things. I mean, there just aren't enough people, but it's big and it's not getting better. So with 69% of teams saying that they are understaffed, what does that look and feel like to the people on that team? That's a lot of long hours. That's a lot of really frustrating experiences. And when you don't have anyone in that seat, even if you do have headcount for 6 months or more, because your recruiting team can't find them, it's a long-term problem. You're not just dealing with that for a couple of weeks. It's not just a hard month. It's a hard run, period.
It's a second order problem. The team is understaffed and over-challenged at work. They have no time for on-the-job training or other professional training. Therefore, the price of ignorance is
Absolutely. And it also affects the up-and-coming people, because if you don't have time for your own training, you sure as heck don't have time to train anybody else. So all the students who are coming in that are really trying hard to find a job, that's the wall you run into. I'd love to hire you, but I can't train you. I've got 6 guys that can do that training, and they are all drowning, absolutely drowning.
You started to answer my question concerning the training, but this is just jobs. How does this fit into the rest of the economy?
Mm-hmm.
Is there really money to pay for that many more people?
That's a great question, and I think it depends on the organization. So one of the biggest drivers here is that security is a cost center in a lot of organizations, unless you're in a consulting firm or you're developing a security product. So these companies where security is their business, they have to have that for deal flow. They have to have that talent, so they'll pay more for it. But Coca-Cola, no way. That's still a cost center. And deriving that conversation from you're a cost center to, okay, I get it, I'm a cost center, but if you don't give me what I need, you're going to lose reputation, you're going to lose dollars, you're going to lose in your stock price when we get breached, right? So the money's complicated and the money drives everything, right? With students, I think it's surmountable, but you've really got to make it clear what you bring to the table, and you can't just go to school. It's a tough market to get into, which is silly to me because of the obscene supply and demand issues that we've got going here. And we touched on some of these things. We've got some hot spots, right? So we've got companies that can't find the people. We've got university programs that are not adequately training people to hit the ground running. As a student, you have to get that experience. I don't care if you set up an incredible home network. Actually, one of my mentors just walked in, Tom Anderson, and that is one of his primary tenets. I don't care if you've got the skills. I can teach you the skills, but I need to know that you've got that passion. I need to know that you are doing things in your free time that make a difference. You have to be preparing yourself because your university is not going to do it for you. You'll get some great book knowledge. And as we all know, book knowledge is obsolete pretty quickly in this industry. Go ahead.
So one of my students, my class yesterday, said he has a master's degree in cybersecurity, but when he came into my class on digital forensics, especially in the cloud, that was never taught to him in any of his courses. And I looked at it, and it's just like, and the question in my mind is, what are these programs teaching these college students? Is it
Right.
all theory, or are they not longer teaching practical experience?
Yeah.
And that to me is the biggest source of frustration, because they're coming to me with questions, and it's like, I can help them up to a certain point, but now I have to rely on others in the cybersecurity community.
To train.
Exactly.
And they're kind of busy. They got a lot of stuff going on. It becomes a real issue. Go ahead, Tom. Yeah.
State college last weekend in the South, and I had a grad like him. He handed me a resume, had his skills at the bottom, asked him what he wanted to do. He said, well, nothing too specific. I said, so what part of that do you enjoy? Well, I've tried a lot. And then I looked at his skills on the bottom. It literally said programming, communicating, and web. All those words. So you have to pick what area of cyber. It's 100 miles wide.
Actually, I have a whole, yes. We're going to dive into that quick.
I I'm a half-time kind of academic, and I do think sometimes I've seen people have excellent technical skills, but they don't have good soft skills in terms of communicating. And frankly, I would prefer that someone have good self-communication skills and build upon technical skills later on. I think that we're expecting too much from educational organizations because they're under-resourced, and frankly, getting skilled computer security faculty is a difficult problem.
I'm going to disagree.
Wait. I have this colleague of mine who's a world-class computer security guy, and he has a PhD. He was recruited to teach at Carnegie Mellon. He was going to go teach at Carnegie Mellon, and he got a call from Amazon saying, whatever they're going to pay you, we will triple it. And
Can we talk about soft skills?
Huh?
Can we talk about soft skills? So interestingly enough, like, there are qualified people with PhDs, like myself. However, in academia, the time horizon for being effective is like 10 years, at least 15 years, because you do research. Now, if you want to be effective today, you need to be in industry.
I agree.
You are all wonderful, amazing, talented, and skilled. And at the after party at Bear and Blue, I look forward to grabbing some of you, pulling you to the table, and with a beer in our hands, going head to head about this. But I'd really like to hear from Donna.
Thank you. Okay, so really this is the talent gap in cyber is one piece of a much bigger problem. I mean, we've got some serious stuff here, right? Got some big stuff we're facing, and I actually loved the keynote speaker's opinion on this, that we kind of had to get here to make all of this work, right? And all of this sounds really awful. I mean, the fact my company's been hit a couple of times with ransomware, and it's just sort of what you do in the world. But every 11 seconds by 2021, that's terrifying to me. And we're all dealing with it. I think one of the things that I want to point out is that it's infiltrating everything. I had lunch with a CEO of a cyber consulting firm not that long ago. And the reason I picked this rock is that she said it's sort of like the talent gap is sort of like an enormous roadblock. It's affecting me because enterprises can't hire, so they shoot business to me. Well, I'm in the same position and I can't hire enough people. So I am taxing my teams, I'm turning away work. I can't make as much money as I know I could if I had the people in place. And while all of that sounds just awful and scary and insurmountable, it creates incredible opportunity. And especially for me, because look at the freaking jobs, right? This, if you haven't seen this, this is actually something relatively new. It's cyberseek.org. They have a talent heat map, and you can go in and play with it, change the filters and stuff. But this is the national heat map. So look at this, 36,000 jobs in places like Florida, Texas, and California. That's a lot of freaking jobs, right? It's a lot of jobs. That makes me very happy. It makes my bottom line very happy. And it should make all y'all very happy as long as we know how to capitalize on this. And that's one of the things that I want to really drill in here, how each and every one of you in here can capitalize on what this looks like to do a better job for yourselves. I want to talk, so we know what jobs are out there, but looking at really what the candidate pool looks like. So this is career builder data. And of course, we're dealing with two different numbers. This is why the lies, damn lies, and statistics comes in. This is career builder data with, over the last year, 1.5 million jobs posted. Let that sink in for just a minute. That's a crap load of freaking jobs, right? There are 75,000 candidates in that same time period that declared themselves active. What constitutes an active candidate? That's someone who says, all right, I'm going to give you my resume. I'm totally freaking on the job market. Get me a job, hook me up. That is not the total workforce. So let's be clear here. There are a lot more people out there in the market, but they're very passive. And not only are they passive in security, they are busy and they are hiding from me on the reg. So if we only have this many people who are raising their hands and this many jobs, we have an enormous problem, I want to just show you what this looks like in Idaho. 12 candidates who say you're active. That is not enough for me. That is absolutely not enough for me, especially when we're looking at 602 jobs in that amount of time. Wow. Right? And then you look back at those ISACA numbers, and it makes sense. It's no wonder 70% are understaffed and it takes 6 months to fill. And you're bringing in people that you know aren't qualified entirely to do the job just because they have security on their resume and can fog a mirror, right? It's tough. It's really tough. It becomes a big issue. But again, every issue creates an opportunity. So you take all that supply and demand, and just as any other economics class will tell you, low supply, high demand brings up dollars. This is the most recent data. I think this was from June of this year. One of the bigger problems, and Tom and I actually had a big conversation about this not too long ago, as soon as you publish cybersecurity compensation data, it's out of date. This is low. It's definitely low, and depending on what market you're working in, this is extremely low. There is no way I could find a CISO in San Francisco for $275. They wouldn't even take my call. Absolutely not. Same thing in Texas. Texas is a huge heavy market right now. And when you look at if you're going to be a CISO in Texas versus a CISO in San Francisco, take Texas every time. They have no state tax. We're working with completely different parameters, and the compensation is still very high. With these numbers, you have to understand that these are not entry-level jobs. These are experienced hires. So all the students who are looking at up here and starting to drool and foam at the mouth, you've got to know what you're doing here to get these numbers, but it's pretty impressive. So money, I think, has to be put into perspective. With dollars like this, every single person in here, if you're making anywhere close to this, your needs are being met. Am I right? You're driving a car, you have food, you have shelter, blah, blah, blah. As long as you're not in San Francisco, then you have 6 roommates, and you're hoping your bus pass lasts the whole month, right? So when we put money in perspective, it drills down into value. This is actually my list. In 25 years, I decided with that kind of experience, I've probably got a master's degree in recruiting, and I could create my own damn list. So when people end up in my office or call me, I am like the career dentist. No one comes to see me when everything's going great. They come to see me when they're sick and tired of what they're doing, right? I get, number one, I'm feeling undervalued. I hate my manager. He's a real dip. I don't know what to do with this. I don't have any challenge. I'm working on legacy technology and I know I'm losing everything. If I stay here, internal advancement, the guy in front of me is not going to die or retire anytime soon, and I'm going to have to consider running him down in the parking lot myself because I hate the guy anyway. And this is a big one. And this actually happens quite a bit. Toxic environments. So any managers out there, make sure you understand that one drives everything. And every single person in here has options, and they will leave you if you create a toxic environment for them. Money's the last one. Every time. It might be the first thing they say when they come in, but as soon as you drill back into that, money is about value. You pay what you tell someone you're paying them is what you tell them their value is to you. When you are crafting your career, understand that. Understand where your limits are before you go out into the marketplace. We all have them. We all have a dollar amount in mind, right? So we've got this incredible market where there's tons of opportunity, and we've got people who are looking for great opportunities and dying to do cool things. But every single day I talk to the employers who can't hire anybody, and I talk to the candidates who say, God, I've been talking to my friends, and man, I really can't find anything. It's been like 3 months, and I thought there were a ton of jobs out there. If anyone in this room has ever been to marriage counseling, you've been told that the problem exists on both sides. So I'll talk to you just real briefly about what's happening in companies, why this has been so hard. But I want to dive really deep into what you can do as a potential job seeker, whether you're looking now or you're looking in 5 years, what you can do to make this easier. So companies, essentially, cybersecurity is relatively new. And you've got a lot of people who don't understand what they're doing. They don't have the background, they don't understand the technology, and frankly, they're a little bit afraid of it. And they've got some old ideas. So if you're hiring a customer service person, you throw up a job description and you put it out on the internet and you post and you pray, and candidates magically appear. That does not happen in security. You have to go find them. You have to be proactive. Another cute thing that I think a lot of companies are doing is recruiters are sending out cold emails to candidates like yourselves, and they say, hey, for compliance purposes, would you click this link and apply? Let me give you a tiny URL to do that with. Well, who's gonna do that? Don't click the link. Please. Right, exactly. Don't click that link. But it's happening. And it's happening because HR has their process and they feel like that's compliance. But then you, me, and everybody else in the world is saying, dear God, that's the dumbest idea I think you've ever had.
So you teach the HR person and you don't hire the person who clicked that link.
Right? And they're bringing a knife to the gunfight. You have to have the right tools. So if you're looking at a very low supply, you better come to the table with money. You better come to the table with perks. You better come to the table with a reasonable relocation plan. And you should probably consider remote work. Or you're going to be stuck with whatever happens to be in your area or relocate for you at the time. And I know in Idaho, that is absolutely something we deal with every day. Another thing I think is really funny, I took my team to Black Hat DEF CON, and we were one of the few recruiting teams that were there. It was really easy to get in the door, have incredible conversations, because we don't have that much competition there. Wild, right? So we've got this enormous security problem. We all know it's a problem, but we're not going to go to the show. We're not going to actually play the game. They're doing some things that are going to have to change if we actually want to solve the problem. But then candidates are doing the same thing. And security people are not like recruiters. You're not going to get in trouble for hugging, right? You're not going to go into any room and decide that you have 10 best friends that you just don't know yet. It's a different philosophy. It's a different mindset. And understanding how to network effectively, kind of on the edge of your comfort zone, is one of the things that we're going to talk about. I know networking is not necessarily what everyone wants to talk about, but it's absolutely essential. The diva complex. The supply and demand is creating a behavior problem. And I'm going to talk to all of you about this and look you all directly in the eyes and tell you not to be a diva. We call them diva darlings in my office. We call them something else when no one's listening. But that diva complex is a real issue. I don't care if you are the rainbow unicorn that farts bubblegum, you cannot behave this way. You can expect a strong compensation and you can discuss what you've done and how many cool things you have been involved in, but don't be a jerk. And that happens a lot. It happens a lot. Please take it from me, it doesn't work. And then of course, we've kind of talked about the fact that you have more options out there than time to deal with them. They did a study and it's this cybersec jobs. And I think this is interesting. So this is self-reporting. 45% of cybersecurity candidates say they don't know how to find a job. You know that's underreporting, right? You know, there's at least 5 guys that are like, no, I totally know what I'm doing here. I've totally got this. Well, what everyone seems to be doing is talking to their friends. So while that sounds like a good idea, 80% of us are talking to our friends and networking, right? And 80% of us are looking at companies that we know because we feel safe and we feel like that's sort of where we should be going. And we're looking at online postings. Those look like good numbers, but let's talk about what that really means. How many friends do you actually trust with the information that you're out there on the market? 3, 5? How many of those people are actually influencers? How many of those people that you trust can actually move that ball forward for you? Probably not that many, right? So it's not a super effective way to go about things. You've got to make more friends, basically. If you're searching the companies that you know, keep in mind that there are 1.5 million jobs out there. I know a lot of companies. I do this for a living. I don't know everything. If you're limiting yourself that way to just what you know, you are leaving an enormous number of opportunities off the plate for yourself. You're limiting yourself. And if you're searching online postings, awesome. That's a great place to start with your research. Absolutely 100% start there. But understand this. Many of the positions in security are not posted. They come to people like me Because as soon as you put out there that your CISO's leaving or that your vulnerability manager is on the outs, you open yourself up to everybody else watching your vulnerability. A lot of companies know that, and they will never post those positions. You'll never even see that they happened. You'll just notice that the change happened because there are people like me moving the board. Understanding these pieces will help you look to different ways of doing things. And I kind of want to dial it all the way back and start with the cornerstone. Anytime you start a search, understand that this is a huge move. It's not just a job. It's about who you see yourself, where you're going to be spending your day. And that moment charts the course for the rest of your career. So it should be taken very, very seriously with a lot of thought and mindfulness behind it. We're here on a Saturday. This is a passionate group of people, right? I mean, you're sitting here listening to me talk about this stuff on a Saturday. This is clearly something that burns in you. But like in the keynote, she was talking, there's a huge number of different ways that you can do this. We all have to, before we start to put a resume together or just search job postings, understand what you actually want to do. There are so many options. This actually came together for me personally about the time that I decided to open up Black Mirror. And I realized that what I loved, what kept me in recruiting, is the ability to truly make a difference. So I can 100% change someone's life. You take a job that I put in front of you, your family life changes, potentially where you live changes, your ability to earn changes. I can change your life for the better. But I also get to change the lives of all the people that you're going to work with. I get to rechart the trajectory of that team and that company with the right hire. That is beautiful. That gets me up every day. Making those offers makes me happy. And after 25 years, the slog is the slog if you don't have a passion. Please start here. Understand what makes the difference for you before you do anything else. And then, Tom, to your point, this was actually what I was thinking. So a lot of people show up in my office, and like your guy that had like 3 skills on the bottom, it doesn't matter if you are entry level or C-level, they show up in my office and they say, so I'm looking for my next gig, and I kind of want to stay in security, and I'm a good leader, and I'm a fast learner. So what do you got? Well, shoot, that's not enough. It is totally not enough. Would you ever show up at Great Harvest and say, I'm in the mood for a sandwich, surprise me. I kind of like bread. And no, you are going to walk into that sandwich shop and you are going to be extremely explicit. I like wheat bread, I like lettuce, I like mayo with a little extra pesto on the side. You are going to know exactly what you want in that sandwich. If you order lunch that way, why the hell would you not be ordering the rest of your life that way? But it takes a lot of careful thought, and you have to start with your driver first and move into what the specifics are. You'll learn the specifics, keep an eye out for them. I think a lot of people go, oh my God, that's totally overwhelming. I mean, what if I make the wrong choice? And there's so many choices out there. You know what you like. I do not like bureaucracy. I do not like boneheaded managers. I do not like working with people who are not as engaged as me. I don't like working with too large a company unless they're a client and I can walk in and leave. I like to work with a small company that serves large companies. I know these things about me. You know these things about yourself. Be clear and open and honest about them with yourself before you do anything else. Thank you. Thank you. And this quote is actually, so Tom Anderson is one of my very early mentors in this. And when I left the INL, I went to work for a company called Decision Toolbox. And this lady was just a kick in the pants. She actually wrote a management book called The Bite Me School of Management. Totally my people. But you really have to ask for what you want, or you're going to deal with what you get. If you're not clear about it, someone else will make the decision for you, and you will end up being one of those people who sort of blows in the wind and does whatever your career or somebody else, likely a bonehead manager, decides you're going to do. So be real clear about it. Once you have those two foundational pieces, this is your job. This is your life. This is your career and how you spend your time. It's your duty to do your market intelligence. It's interesting to understand where your competition is. This is also career builder data, but you can find this information call me if you can't find it, but it's good information to have. So if you know that you're up against a whole bunch of people from the Army, you know that they have strengths and weaknesses. They're working on legacy systems. You might be coming out of industry and you know that that's your strength. Understanding where you want to go to work, who's actually hiring, and what your competition is critical as you craft your job search. And this is, of course, national stuff, but let's look at Idaho real quick. I had no idea that JP Morgan Chase was doing so much hiring here. Did you guys know that? Right?
This is state type.
This is Idaho Falls area. 83406, my zip code, 30-mile radius, right? Did you know that? Kind of interesting to know. And that information will change my marketing strategy. And as a candidate, you have to have your own marketing strategy. Maybe you don't want to work for a JP Morgan Chase. And Mantech International is a consulting firm. So understanding that could be your potential trajectory there might change. Maybe you want to work contract. It's a great idea for some, but if you want a full-time job with benefits, don't hit them up. One of the questions that I get a lot as people are considering these pieces is whether or not they should get certified. And this was actually new information to me too. This is kind of a neat slide. Oh, I forgot to put I'll get that, just where the information came from on this slide for distribution. But look at this. So we've got the orange as certification holders and the blue for those that are requesting certifications. So if you're looking to get certified, look at how many people are actually certified versus how many positions are actually requiring that. I feel two ways about certifications. I think it is sometimes a good way to prove your salt. You passed the test, you did the work, you're dedicated and involved, but whether or not that's actually going to be the key for you to get in the door is a different thing. Now, this is almost a one-to-one relationship. And the reason for this is the government requirement for CISSP. So there are a lot of jobs that you just can't get, particularly in the government space, unless you have it. But this CompTIA, everybody's getting it. I think CompTIA is doing a really good job marketing because they're getting a lot of people doing it, but without the employers that need it, is it necessarily relevant for you? And as an employer or manager, is it relevant for you? A lot of times when companies put this information up there, that blue line will consist of people saying, hey, it'd be nice if you had it, but we don't really care if you do.
I also think that kind of tells the DoD strategy though. Both of those are 8570 certs.
Yep.
However, the bulk of DoD doesn't go for the CISSP because they mark all of their positions down to where the Sec Plus is the one that they
Exactly.
can put everyone through and move on.
And just push it because it's a requirement. It's not even necessarily that my opinion, useful. But that is my opinion. There are a lot of other opinions out there. So certs, I just want you to kind of understand when, as you're positioning yourself. This is a huge one. And this was actually information that was put out, I want to say 6-7 years ago. So there was an organization that did a heat map for how recruiters look at your resume. And this information is important because you really only get 6 seconds. I am a seasoned recruiter. I'm not even sure if I give most resumes 6 seconds. I know everyone in the crowd is like, oh, how could you possibly do it? Well, the truth is, I can tell in an instant whether or not this is someone that I'm going to give more than 6 seconds to. If your resume does not give me everything I need in one shot, I'm on to the next. And that shot is right at the top. Next, the very next thing is where you're working now, what you're doing, what your title is. When you craft your resume, make sure you've got, don't put in the objective. Objectives went out with the 80s. Put in an executive summary. This is what I do. This is why you should read more. This is where I am. This is the title I have right now, which may or may not be relevant for me. And at the bottom, the education. That's it. 6 seconds. Boom. We've got some stuff we've got some information here on how to write the right resume. One of the things that I see a lot in security, candidates like to, even if you've got this all done, y'all seem to think that if you load an image file don't send me an image file, don't load it into the job boards. Once I throw that into my ATS, it comes up as blank. Name unknown, contact information unknown, those systems cannot read an image file. So you disappear immediately. So all that great work that you just did on your resume, gone. Another thing that I see on security resumes quite a bit that I never saw in investment banking, why aren't you putting your email address on your resume? Why? I have to be able to get a hold of you. And don't put tdirty@hotmail.com. No. Make sure that whoever is reading your resume is not going to blush or think less of you by your email address, and your phone number has to be something professional. Think about your ringtone, think about your messaging, think about all of these things. You want someone, think about you as the boss. When you're the boss, what do you want to hear on that ringtone? What do you want to hear on that message? Do you want to hear the 5-year-old pick up the phone? Probably not. Don't answer the phone if you're looking for a job while the TV's blaring in the background. There are some pretty serious no-nos that make you look unprofessional pretty dang quickly, and you only have a quick second to get their attention.
What's your preferred file format for resumes?
I like PDF. I really like PDF. It's clean. The documents don't unformat themselves accidentally on purpose. But those image files, it's absolutely maddening. And I know people are trying to protect the data. That is not the way to protect the data. And frankly, it's your resume. Don't put sensitive crap on there. Why are you trying to protect that data in the first place? It's public data. Make sure that you've got a LinkedIn profile. That was actually a big deal in the last. Make sure you have an online presence. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to check out if I get past the 6 seconds into your resume, I'm looking up everything there is about you before I present you to a client. Make sure it's clean. Make sure it's something that I'm not going to freak out, because that's happened before. Yeah. Yeah.
You're doing stuff. You have a project, you've done these sites, get a website, well, put that on your resume.
Yeah, put it on your resume, put it on your LinkedIn profile. Yep. Anything that you're doing that's relevant. I know everyone's like, oh, I don't want to do that. I hate networking. Don't make me go. I get it. I totally get it. And don't do that kind of networking, like the mixers, unless you've got friends there or whatever. I don't think they're successful. But you do have to leverage your social media. I have talked to several C-level people really recently, and I know we only have about 5 minutes, that have said, I don't know how to network. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to get out of my comfort zone. This is not an entry-level problem. This is a problem throughout, and especially in the technical industries. Networking can be easy, and you can start off by asking people for advice. Put your resume together. Contact someone you know. Say, hey, will you look at this for me? What ideas do you have? But make sure in every single one of those conversations, the networking piece is always, who else do you know that I should be talking to? Give me the name of one other person that might have something relevant to say. Do not forget to ask that question, and do not forget to follow up with that person once you've got that name. Following that chain is the most important thing that you can do in networking. Then you don't have to walk into a room and be freaked out and want to like crawl in a hole. You can have one simple conversation after another. And I'll tell you, most people don't do this. It is career gold. You are making friends 15 minutes at a time that will bend over backwards to help you. Not just then, but 5 years from then. It is critical that you take this step. But make sure you're listening. 15 minutes. Listen to what they have to say. Ask clear and direct questions. Follow up later with a thank you. And always make sure that you have that next step. Always, always, always make sure you have that step. Of course, there's always times where it doesn't work. Find a good recruiter. There is a whole list on CSO, a recruiter directory. We're of course fantastic, but that's just my personal opinion. But there's a lot of us out there more than you would probably think. Also leverage your industry resources like ISACA and ISSA and ISC squared. And if you've got certifications, they've got career programs too. There's a lot of different ways, but you have to get out of your own way and do it. Anyone seen that your comfort zone and then like where the magic happens meme? You have to get out of your comfort zone if you're expecting magic, and make sure you're doing this through your entire career, not just early career. These are skills that you will learn and refine throughout your life till you retire, hopefully early. Okay, so we only have a couple minutes for questions because I can talk a blue streak, but anything that I left out?
Aside from remote working, what is something that the organization can do to attract talent? If it's relaxed drug policy or...
That's a funny one.
What is the number one recommendation you could give? What other company is looking to attract talent?
The drug conversation is actually a big one that's happening right now. And there are a lot of, particularly consulting companies, who aren't doing any drug testing at all because they know they wouldn't have any staff. It's a really interesting problem to have, because then do you knowingly hire the consulting firm that doesn't do any drug testing because they wouldn't have, I don't know. That's one. I think culture is such an important thing. Culture, training. If you set aside $5,000 a year for every single security person to go to Black Hat DEF CON, you have them hooked. If they know they can continue to learn and grow and become better individuals, and that you support that, most organizations aren't doing that. There are a lot that even just say, okay, we'll give you some time off, but it's on your dime. That $5,000 a year on one person seems like a lot until you buy that retention. $5,000 a year on retention is nothing, absolutely nothing. I think when we look at people in this industry, it's about working on cool projects with cool people and learning and growing consistently. with the flexibility that they need to have a life. Those are the 4 key components, I think. Great question. Yeah. Anything else before we have to wrap up? Oh, and we have interview tips and resume tips up here. So if you want to come grab those. And